Hey. Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm Brandi Carlile. And this is the amazing Elisabeth Moss.
Thank you.
We're both really honored to be here talking with you guys today, and I know you've just seen the trailer. I watched the film last night and I was really blown away. As a person that spent a lot of time backstage in a lot of rock and roll venues, I was at times visibly uncomfortable watching it because of the audacity and the authenticity of your performance.
Thank you. That's very nice.
I'm just going to get right into asking you questions about it. Is that okay?
Yes, that's
Or do you
great.
want to say anything?
No, that's
first?
great. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, first of all, I was wondering who you drew inspiration from for that character. You know, which women or men or people that are struggling with addiction and mental illness. Who did you derive some of that energy from?
Yeah, it was I didn't stick exclusively even to the music industry.
Cool.
Yeah, there were people that I explored and researched, and but the obvious ones, and then like Amy Winehouse, and but I also watched a lot of Marilyn Monroe documentaries.
Cool.
Looked into that, even like James Dean, just anybody that I could, not that he was had an addiction problem necessarily, but just that kind of life, that fame, and then one of the most important things was to look into the addiction and then the sobriety. And I talked to somebody who is sober now, and she was extremely, extremely helpful and really open, and really told me things that were very personal about her journey and about her time when she was on drugs and then coming off, and just what that whole experience was for her. Similar age to Becky. And so that was her vulnerability, and her being so open about her experience and really telling me some of the harder times and some of the rougher things was extremely helpful, because I didn't want it to be some sort of perfect story of, oh, she gets sober and everything's fine now.
Yeah, it wasn't neat and tidy like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, she's not doing yoga and everything's peaceful. Like, she's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that easy.
No, I was uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable when you were in the grips of addiction, and I was uncomfortable when you were sober, and it really painted a picture on the other side of the coin that actually sobriety is quite awkward.
Yeah.
When you've been
That's cool.
an addict.
Yeah.
I was really, really blown away by it. I think you did a brilliant job, but
thank you.
that should be a surprise to 0 of us.
Thank you. Yeah, it was important to me. There's an act in the movie, Act 4, where she's sober, and for the first time in a long time. And I just wanted to make sure that to capture that anxiety and the instability and the feeling of you just are just trying to hold on and just be present and not, and just try to be in the moment. And it was really important to me for it not to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that she goes back to rehab probably several more times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, exactly.
As you do. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you were absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So the other thing I noticed about the film is that it could not have been holistically or just completely scripted. Some of that stuff you were saying had to just be off the cuff, you just deriving some crazy tangents.
Believe it or not, it was actually, it was 100% scripted.
That's how good you are.
It was every word for word, pretty much, what Alex Ross Perry, the writer and director, wrote. All of those tangents, and it's interesting because it sounds nonsensical. It sounds
nonsensical.
It
I don't know.
sounds crazy.
I gotta meet whoever wrote that. Then we have to write songs together.
Yeah. I would like to hear that song.
Yeah, so would I.
Really interesting song. It was word for word exactly what he wrote, and it sounds nonsensical, but if you deviated slightly and said anything different than exactly the mumbo jumbo that it really didn't make any sense. It went off the deep end.
How'd you react when you were reading that?
I was scared.
Did you know? But did you know you could pull it off that way? Because
No.
I was 100% certain, and so was my wife, that you were making that shit up.
That's amazing. No, I was scared, and I'm pretty good at memorizing, and it was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was really tough to remember it was really tough to remember this one. And I knew it had to be kind of word perfect or really wouldn't make sense. So, and it had to sound like I was making it up. You know, it had to sound like it was off the cuff too.
Yeah.
So, no, that was Alex.
Unbelievable. One of the reasons why I was so physically uncomfortable the entire time watching the film is because I'm born and raised in Seattle. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
You would have guessed I was from the South, and
Yeah.
I think it's because I'm like a poser and I have a Southern accent. Sorry, Texas. But watching all of our heroes in grunge and punk rock coming out of that city, finding themselves in the grips of addiction, and then ultimately almost none of them making it out alive or making it into their later years alive. It was really interesting. We just did a Chris Cornell tribute out in LA that was just really like unbelievable and heartwarming, but in some ways it felt like a real goodbye to that moment and movement that was so cool at the time and then fizzled out. So I was just so touched by the way that you portrayed the conflict in that rock and roll and punk rock and grunge community. Yeah,
thank you. I explored that a lot, just trying to understand where that music came from. You know, I was sort of fascinated by that generation, and they were so angry.
Yeah.
They were so angry, they had so much anger, and it wasn't just teen angst, it was really genuine anger.
And depression.
And depression.
Yeah.
And it was at a time when people didn't know how to deal with their feelings, they didn't know how to deal with that, they didn't have help, and they weren't supposed to talk about it, and you know, you weren't supposed to be open about that. And you know, thank God it's a little bit different now, so they couldn't get help from their parents, they weren't getting help from their teachers. And they felt like, I spoke to an artist from that time, Beck, who kind of came in more in the end, near the end of it, but he was really helpful, and he described that generation to me, and he was like, you know, we were so angry, and everyone hated us. All the adults, we felt like they hated us, and there was nobody to talk to, and we were so depressed and had nobody to talk to about it, and so we created this music, and that's where that whole genre of music comes from. And you listen to it, I mean, if you listen to, you know, just classic Nirvana songs or something, they're so angry.
Yeah.
And it is really incredible and impressive, though, that they were able to, at young ages as well, put those feelings into music and put it into their art.
So articulately.
But they didn't have the tools to deal with what they were dealing with, and so unfortunately, a lot of them didn't make it.
Yeah, almost none of them.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like emotionally, I felt the weight of Seattle and the grunge movement and how that came to fruition. But musically, I heard a lot of the Riot Girl movement. I heard a lot of Team Dresch and the Butchies and Slater-Kinney in your voice, which is really quite good, by the way.
That's a very big compliment, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Brandi
So
Carlile
what about your
I had a good voice, you guys. Did you hear that? That was cool. You
she
heard
really
it, right?
does. It's no surprise. So how did you prepare for singing and playing an instrument? What did that feel like to you?
It was hard.
Was it?
Yeah, what you do is really hard.
What you do is impossible.
No. What you do is impossible. I grew up with a family of musicians, jazz and blues though, so I have a huge amount of respect for musicians. So when I set out to try to learn to play the guitar, I knew I wasn't going to become a guitar player. I just have too much respect for how difficult it is. But I got to a place where I was able to look like I was, you know, playing it, or could play the song at a slower tempo.
Yeah.
And not with an amp hooked up so nobody could hear it. But it was, I got some good calluses on my hands, on my fingers. I was pretty proud of them.
You got your calluses?
I did. I've totally lost them.
Have you lost them? Let's work on that.
Oh my God, those are really good.
Mine are good, and most of the time they're like black and other multicolors too. But I knew I was going to hang out with you, so I was like.
Yeah, so I practiced for about 4 or 5 months, mainly just focusing on the songs that I had to play in the movie, and then I had to play one song on the piano.
Can I talk about that?
Yeah.
Or is there like a spoil alert sensitivity
No,
thing?
totally, because it's how we met. Too,
yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a moment where Lizzie plays a song at the piano, and it's really touching. Like, you won't forget it. It's still with me, and I'm gonna see it again specifically because it's so beautiful. And you sing this song I think this was just one continuous.
Yeah, it was a single with just one take, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. And you're playing piano.
Yeah.
You were like really playing piano. And you play the chords of the bridge and they walk up, and I was like, I was nervous, you know, for you. And I think that like on the edge of your seatness, like knowing that you could have hit a wrong chord at any moment or forgetting the lyric, you really feel like it was going down live and that you only had one shot at it. And that's one of the things that makes it so vulnerable, is because I've felt that way, and I still feel that way at times. Yeah. So I was like really rooting for you, and it was beautiful. You did an amazing job, and it's a song about how we met too.
Yeah, exactly. So I sing and play Bryan Adams' Heaven in the movie, and I sing it to my daughter. And she did an incredible cover of the song that I had was listening to for like 4 months, because it was one of the only covers of the song that's out there. And it's a beautiful deconstructed version of it. It's very different and so good. So we were on Ellen together, and I found out she was there. Yeah, Ellen. Yeah, she's great. And I found out she was there, and I was like, can I meet her? And I sort of went into your dressing room and was like...
She walked in, I was like... I'm a massive fan. Like, I've written her fan letters, quite a few.
It's creepy.
Yeah, sorry. It is, I know.
It's just too many.
Sorry.
It's okay, it's all right.
Just drop the restraining order.
All right. No, not yet.
And I'll be cool. I'll be cool.
So I was like, I've been listening to your song. It's been something that's been incredibly inspiring, because I needed a female voice as well to listen to in order to be able to do the song. And I was so nervous. We did like 8 takes of it. And I think it's the 6th take that's in the movie. And I was terrified because I can't play the piano. And so I just learned this one song and a really simple version of it. And I was just, it was terrifying. I don't know how you do what you do, honestly. It's just so terrifying. And it was really like one wrong note and we had to start over, or if I forgot the lyric, which of course I did, obviously like 5 times until we got to the 6th take, which is the one that's in the movie. Because it's the one that I did, we got all the way through and played like
that's
all
the
chords.
moment. Yeah. That's where what you do crosses the road with making records. You know, ever since I've been a record producer, I've been learning to understand the moment in a song's trajectory that is rock and roll. It's not a genre. It's not a concept. Rock and roll is a risk. It's what happens when you know the song well enough to get through it, but you don't know it well enough to think that you're cool yet.
Wow.
And it happens one time. It does not happen 2 times. And that's why I don't believe in making demos or doing a lot of practicing and stuff, because I think that the rock and roll moment in the life of a song is only once. And so you took your rock and roll moment and you put it in this movie, and that's why you feel that way when you're watching, and that's why you feel that way when you listen to an authentically made album.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great way of putting it. It's similar in acting though too. It's the exact same thing. There's that moment.
Is it?
Yeah, there's that moment, there's that take when you know the scene. Technically, you know it, you know your lines.
Yeah.
You're not quite sure how it's going to go.
Yeah.
You're not quite sure how you're going to do it.
Yeah. You're not in love with a certain face you're making or a certain timbre to your voice.
You don't feel like good about it necessarily yet. You don't feel confident, but that's the magic too.
Yeah,
that's the one that's like, that actually feels alive.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to call it the rock and roll moment.
It's the rock and roll moment, because rock and roll can happen in acting.
Yeah.
And if there is an actor that's a rock and roll star, it's you.
Oh, that's nice.
I mean that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was a really scary experience doing any of the music in that. It's not my thing. I'm an actor. But I was really, we had a couple of shows that we did, and it was like the coolest thing I've ever done.
Would you ever get up on stage and sing that song with me?
Heaven?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because you heard it. All these people, Renaissance.
Not right now. You have to pay to see that.
At some point. Austin City Limits next year.
That would be an honor.
You're
going to sing most of it.
Well, no, we would do it in unison, because like the recording I have of it, I doubled my vocal.
Oh, yeah.
And I did it because I couldn't trust myself to accept the rock and roll moment at the time, so I woke myself up at 6 o'clock in the morning 2 days in a row, wouldn't do it the same day, to double my vocal so I wouldn't match up to it and be a perfectionist.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I think it'd be really cool if we just stood there and sang it in unison.
I'll do it.
Fun.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, I'd be way into it.
That'd be awesome.
Cool, man.
Oh my God, I'm gonna be terrified.
Well, we met on Ellen.
Yeah.
But it kind of opened a door. I realized how personable you were, and I could really sense right away that you're a really soulful person. I know you're an activist. I feel like you're changing the world. I feel like you're doing things that nobody's ever done before.
That's nice.
I also feel like you're one of the greatest actors in the world, and one of the best I've ever seen visually as well, without even having to hear Lizzie say anything. You know exactly what she wants you to feel. She's always in command of us at all times, even when she's being at her most vulnerable. And I had a song that was really close to me personally, and that's why I started writing you stalker letters.
Yeah.
Because I wanted,
Sure.
call it what it is. In a music video, there's obviously really no space for dialogue. There's just this visual performance.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get a message out to the world. And so I started asking you if you would star in and get involved with a music video I wanted to make for a weird deep cut ballad on my album.
Yeah, and she sent me this song, Party of One. And I wasn't like, I didn't really have like a lot of time, and I wasn't sure if I was like able to even fit it in, but I wanted to do something with Brandi. And then I told you this, like I listened to the song and I was like, there's just no way that this has to be made. I can't, it was just one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard. And I'm still obsessed with that song. It's so, so gorgeous. So I just was like, okay, we have to do this just based on this song. It was just so beautiful, and it's such an incredible message. It's such a personal message. So it meant a lot to me that you wanted me to be involved because of that. And yeah, and we made this really cool music video, which was really fun.
I got married to my wife, Catherine, before Doma was cast out. And so we were married unofficially. Yeah. And she lived in another country. And it was really difficult for us to find a way to live together and be together. And we really struggled with that deeply. I'll never forget the day that Doma went away, and I'll never believe that that's a permanent change, you know, while the country's in the state that it's in at the moment. So I wanted to reiterate this message that I felt around the time that we had our first child, which was things started getting a little bit rough, as it does when you have a child. Can I get an amen? And I felt this pressure that I just wasn't expecting to feel. Yeah. Like I felt that I had more pressure on me to make my marriage work because of the fight, because of what we'd had to go through to obtain this equal right, you know, to be together. And so I wrote a song about feeling that, you know, pressure, and I just wanted that to be reiterated in some way to the world, or to people that might be struggling with that, you know, balance of domesticity. And because we're witnessing a generation being granted access to a civil right for the first time. Yeah. And it's an unbelievable thing. Yeah. So.
But it's important to be constantly reminded that it is a right that we should have and should not be taken away.
Yeah, progress can move in the opposite direction too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the way that you handled the music video, not just in your acting, but in the care that you gave to the direction and the script and the cast, the people that you put together around it, was honestly one of the greatest musical visual experiences that I've ever had in my life. And actually, I will say the greatest.
Oh, that's awesome. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. It would be amazing. Should we show that?
Yeah, do they have it?
Now?
Oh, really? You guys have it? Can we show it?
On these things?
On these guys?
We're giving each other the Nancy Pelosi clap.
Isn't that a beautiful song? Yeah, it still gets me. It still gets me. It's just that turn and the strings come in at the end. It's just
when you turn around,
beautiful.
it's like.
Well, that's what we were trying to do. Is just we had a great director, Bernice. We had all ladies, female director, female DP, female producers. It was very cool. Bear, as we call her, we worked on we listened to the song so many times, and it's so fun for me. I listen to music a lot when I'm working, and it was really fun to try to turn a song into a visual. And that was the moment in the video and the song that was so important to me when, that I Am Yours comes in for the first time, and that I felt like it was a turn. I felt like, to be able to, I wanted to physically represent those strings coming in.
Yeah.
And it was a responsibility because I love the song so much. I'm such a huge fan of yours, but I'm very proud of it.
You're really in touch with music, like in a way that, I mean, you're probably aware of, but I'm not sure you are. Like in this, one of the most powerful points in this video, if you ask me, is like in the very end, you're in the bed and you basically, you pose a question just by raising your eyebrows, but you do that right as the violins start to ascend. So it's just really cool musical choreography. For anybody that wants an outsider's perspective on how something like this goes down, I flew out to see this video get made. And I thought I was going to stand in the room and watch this go down, but Elisabeth's really protective of her art, and she's like, no, you're going to be in this like tiny room looking at a monitor.
Yeah, I'm not going to have her watching on set.
And
I wrote the song.
I was really,
terrifying.
I loved it because it was like I was watching the actual video.
Yeah.
And so all day long, you're watching these scenes go down, and you hear him play the song, and Nicole and Elisabeth were just working with the song. So you hear the song, you don't hear any words or anything like that. So the whole day I thought there was just like no way for me to hear what anybody was saying, and that there was just this no dialogue thing. Well, the very last scene of the day was the fight. And so it's like, all right, they're rolling, and you're watching it. These two women started screaming at each other. And your assistant, who's with you all the time, burst into tears and like ran out of the room. I bit every fingernail, every scrap of fingernail I had off my hands. We were so uncomfortable, which is a theme of yours.
Thank you.
See, do you know what I'm talking about with Handmaid's Tale? It's like, you should watch, some important art is taking place, but at the same time, you just want to look away a little bit. And as funny as it is, I think that is what makes you so powerful, is you are forcing us to look at things that we wouldn't otherwise look at in every project that you do.
Thank you.
And for that reason, I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah, people say to me, especially about The Handmaid's Tale, that it's very dark, or they have trouble watching it, and I totally understand that. I do get that, and usually, depending on my mood, usually I say, if you have to watch though, because that's not real, and if you can't watch the TV show that we're making about it, how are you going to be able to confront and look at what's actually happening around you in your country and in this world?
Yeah.
Well
said.
Thanks. It's true. I mean, I don't like looking at that stuff either. But Margaret Atwood was the one who also said we were too busy looking at our phones. Mm-hmm. She said that in the 80s. So can you imagine how much worse it is now?
In the 80s?
Yeah.
We didn't have phones in car phones in the 80s. We called them car phones, right?
Phones,
the Zach Morris phone came out like the 90s.
Yeah. 88. So yeah, it might be something there.
Sure.
We were too busy doing that to look up and see what was happening around us. So I think that's really, really important.
She's a prophet.
Yeah, she really is. She's an incredible woman. Yeah.
So did it ever affect you?
Doing the show? No, I mean, for me, it's an outlet. For me, it's cathartic. Mm-hmm. It's also work, obviously. You're doing 60, 70 hours a week, and it's a job that you have to get done. I find it a pleasure, if I can say that. It feels good to be able to do something that I feel is important, that I feel connected to personally, and it gives me an outlet. It gives me a place to put my feelings about things. I think that's important for all of us to be able to do that, and often we don't get the chance or know what to do with our feelings. So I'm lucky that I get to do that. There are moments for sure. We shot in DC recently, and we were at the Lincoln Memorial and at the monument, and it's this incredible place, and these structures and statues and writings, and it were built to honor what our country was built on, the principles our country was built on, and really important ideas of democracy and human rights. And, you know, there's the spot where MLK gave his I Had a Dream speech, and, you know, I kneel on it at one point, and it was just, you cannot help but be incredibly moved by that.
Even though you know you're at work, it's something about it is permeating and real and relevant.
For sure, absolutely. It does. It was moving, even though, yeah, it's a job. Yeah. You're doing your thing, and you're trying to get the day done. It's still it was a moment definitely where I felt something bigger than the TV show.
I get that about you. And you said one time that you were taken aback by the fact that I'm a lighthearted person when I sound sort of tortured in my music. I feel the same way about you and your acting. It's like when we hang out, we're like really light. We just sort of shoot the shit.
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
About country songs and stuff.
I know, and I just go do stupid scenes.
Yeah.
Made up stories. I know, but I think, I don't know if you find this, do you find that because you put it into your music, it allows you to be more free and light in life because you have somewhere to put it, I imagine. That's how I feel.
Absolutely. The nature of catharsis in that way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and you have a great support system as well.
Yeah, and so do you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think, did you want to
do
open it up to Q&A now? Is it an appropriate time to do that?
I guess so, yeah, I think so. So they're on this computer here. So
okay, is that what's going on? Okay, is that what it is?
Yeah.
She's way better at these things than me. Okay.
I guess we pick which one we want to do.
So, do you want to just start at the top?
Yeah, just start at the top.
Okay, so how long or frighteningly short a walk do you think it is from Trump's America to Gilead?
From Trump's America to Gilead.
Just a little question.
Yeah, just a late question. You know, I think I hope it's a long walk. I think that we are far from it in a lot of ways. I think that there are other countries that are a lot closer, or are pretty much Gilead. Yeah. And I've heard from people who live in those countries that say that.
Yes.
So I think that in comparison to those countries, I do think we are farther. But I do think, I've actually spoken to Margaret Atwood about this because anytime I get around her, I sort of just try to ask her as many questions as possible and try to get answers and get advice from her.
I bet.
Yeah, you just can you help me? You help all of us. And one of the things that I've asked her is that question basically, is how close do you think we are, and what can we do? And she's answered pretty much, similarly in the sense of, we're not there, but you cannot close your eyes. No. And one of the things that she's talked about is freedom of press and freedom of speech and the right to protest. She's told me, one of the things she told me, which happens in the show actually in season 1, the moment you take away someone's, a country's, a people's right to protest, you're in trouble. Right. And there was a scene we did in season 1 where there was a protest and what turns out to be Gilead people, guardians, opened fire on the protest. And so that right to speak out, to speak for yourself, to speak for what you believe, when that's taken away and you can't do that, you don't have the freedom to do that, she was saying basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's when you're in trouble. Yeah. So to keep an eye on that.
And globally, that's a problem that's always in flux, that comes up and suppresses in certain areas. Yeah. I have always thought The Handmaid's Tale should be digested on a much more global, from a much more global perspective than to kind of narrowly compare it to the country that we're living in right now, because it really is about the oppression of women globally over the course of history.
Absolutely. I mean, Margaret said, many interviews, nothing in that book isn't something that has happened before. Yeah. It is based on history.
Alarmingly true.
And cyclical history as well, things happening over and over and over. And everything from the subjugation of women to certain torture methods that are done in the show, genital mutilation, things like that. I mean, sorry, I know it's like Sunday and here we are talking about hello everybody. But these are things that happen now are happening right now.
Yeah.
And so
the thing I like about Handmaid's Tale, it's a trail of breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
You know, it shows us when we're headed back into those directions.
Yeah.
It's like more effectively than almost any television show in history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to large credit too to Margaret, though, you know, for having
absolutely.
this sort of foresight in '88 to write this book, which is incredible.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
What is something the men in the room might not understand about the experience of being a female actress or musician?
Huh. What is something the men in the room might understand? Well, we were talking about this a little bit backstage. You're a mom, and Becky in the movie, her smell is a mom, not a very good one. And we were talking about the sort of difference between how men and women are judged or perceived being a parent, and how historically a man, especially a rock star and musician, is allowed to go on the road, is allowed to spend months away from their family, is allowed to be a rock star and all that goes along with that. And it's considered cool and they're not really judged for it. But if a woman does it, it is irresponsible. Yeah. And they're considered possibly not being the best mom. And I think the same probably is in every industry, not just, you know, acting and music. Yeah. You know, there is that judgment placed upon women. So I think that's something, I think men understand that, especially, you know, probably a lot of men in this room. But I think that is something that is a big difference, you know.
We spend a lot of time talking about that in my band, because my brothers that I'm in a band with, they each have 2 kids too.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time touring together with 6 kids.
Wow.
And that's a real interesting
Are you all
tour
on
bus.
one bus? Like...
We have historically we do a family bus, a band bus, and a crew bus right now. And the family bus is like explosions of toys, diaper changing stations. On what used to be beer coolers, we have diaper changing stations now. With like those little tables that you change, and there's no beer in them anymore. We go to the band bus for that, but
the kids go to the band bus for that.
It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. It's a real thing. And, you know, even though I think that there's kind of parenting comparisons and negative connotations attached to men and women in parenting and their problems in every industry, our industries are important in that they're kind of platform industries because they sort of set the tone in certain ways for society, and music and the arts, they inspire us so much in the way that we live our lives. Yeah. So it really has to be talked about in a way that's compassionate. And I think that it's a double standard that I'm still working a way around. Really? I just remember my very first interview when my daughter was born with a female, a woman journalist actually. And at the end of the interview, she said, you know, Brandi, don't lose your edge. Because that's what happens to these women, is they're really cool and they're rock and roll, and then they have these kids, and it's like they start to embrace domesticity and lose their edge. And it bothered me so much psychologically that I thought that the birth of my daughter was going to bring the end of my potency as an artist, you know. And men do not face questions or accusations about their
It's just not a
edge.
part of. It's not a part of the conversation.
No.
At all. No. Well, you did not lose your edge.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, it's really. She has a song called "The Mother," and it's an incredible song.
Thank you.
And where you talk about how you have dealt with having a child and your career, and you've done so beautifully with that. I feel like you've taken that experience and just brought it to your music, you know, and allowed it to enrich it, allowed it to make it even stronger.
Thank you.
So that reporter can, you know what?
Yeah. Maybe she's learned something since then.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from your role on, where'd that one go? What did you learn from your role on West Wing that you've carried through until now?
Working with those actors. I was 17 when I started that show, and I did it from 17 to 23, and so it was the first time I'd ever really been on anything that big, and there were all these theater actors from New York, and they had been in the business forever, and they were the professionals, and I learned so much from them. Martin Sheen in particular played the president, and they were so kind. They were kind, they were generous, They treated every single crew member as if he was the most important person on set. They were professional. They were on time. They were professional. They knew their lines, and it was fun. They had fun, and they taught me what it's supposed to be like on set, and they taught me how you're supposed to be the #1 on set, how you're supposed to lead a cast, how you're supposed to be that person, how the environment that you're supposed to set for people. And they taught me that you know, it doesn't matter how big the show gets, it doesn't matter how popular it becomes, that's never supposed to change, and you're lucky to be there. So they set the tone for me in a lot of ways, and just in my professional sort of work life,
cool,
how it's supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, can you share with us how you took the decision to participate in The Handmaid's Tale? Yeah, that's interesting. I want to hear that too.
How did that go down? Well, I read the book years ago.
Had you read the book before?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Like when I was a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't, you know, I remembered loving it, but didn't really remember it that well. And so they sent me the first episode, the script, and they offered me the part. And I think my first thought was, I don't know if this is a good idea. It's a very dark book, and it doesn't really have an ending. And how are you going to make a TV show out of this like 300-page book that's all first-person narrative, completely from her point of view, all in her voice? So I was like, this is a terrible idea. And then I read the first episode, and I was like, oh, fuck, this is really good. This is really, I was like, they figured out how to do it. They figured out how to do it. Bruce Miller, our creator of our show, head writer, figured out how to do it. And then I said, can I see the second episode? Because you've got one, but well, how's the next one? And I read the next one, and just was like, oh, damn it, it's better than the first one. And I didn't necessarily want to sign on to another TV show so quickly. It had only been a couple years since Mad Men. And I wanted to do TV again at some point, but I wasn't sure about so soon. And it became something I remember thinking, I remember one night I was like, not sure, and I was maybe gonna say no, and I was not sure what I was gonna do. And I remember having almost like a nightmarish experience, waking up and imagining not taking it and someone else doing it.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Like I had this like, what if someone else, and I could picture someone else doing it, and I was like, no, 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 no. No. No, someone else is not getting their hands on this. And that's why I said yes. It was pure jealousy and competition.
Own it!
Yeah.
Own it!
Purely competitive. And I've said this before, but I am so glad I said yes, because it has been a role that I feel the most connected to out of anything I've ever
so
played.
glad you said yes.
Yeah, I'm so proud to be a part of it, so thank God I said yes.
Elizabeth, it sounds like you do a lot of research. Can you talk about what kind? Interviews, reading? What's your life like when you are researching roles? That's a good question.
Yeah. I don't know if I do a lot of research in comparison to other people. I remember I worked with Michael Stuhlbarg recently, who's a wonderful actor, and he showed up. He's brilliant, genius. And he showed up to our rehearsal, and he opened this binder. And it had like color coding and sections in it and notes, and it was just this gigantic thing that he had done all of his research.
Binders are serious.
Yeah, it was so serious, so impressive. And I literally pulled out like a legal pad and a pencil that was like completely blank. And I felt so inadequate next to this guy who had done all this research. I don't know if I do a lot of research at all. I think for me, I try to take what I can, what I need, for her smell, listen to music, watch documentaries, read book, that kind of, and then when I feel like I'm done with that part of it, and I feel like it's not helpful anymore, I leave it behind, you know? I think it kind of starts from the inside for me.
It's the rock and roll moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you over research, you might not get the rock and roll moment.
Exactly.
I feel like we answered that question about Courtney Love and how did you go about fleshing out and creating your unique character.
Oh, yeah.
But did you specifically look at Courtney Love as an example? That struck me too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's obviously such a huge part of that era.
Yeah.
And musically, personally.
Musically,
Yeah.
some of those notes that you were choosing and how to get out of them was very Courtney.
For sure, and you know, unfortunately, there actually were a lot of incredible female musicians and female bands at that time. But unfortunately, of course, they weren't on the radio as much, and they didn't have necessarily the followings that some of the male bands had and male rock stars had. Now we know, you know, but at the time, so Courtney was one of the biggest stars of the time. So yeah, it was her, but it was also Kurt Cobain just as much as
yeah,
her.
as much as her.
Yeah, like, you know, and it was so many people from that time, and so they were part of this generation in this movement. I think because she's a woman and because she's blonde, like there's definitely things that are obviously people are going to draw the parallels.
Yeah.
But it was no more her than it would have been Kurt or anyone else or Axl Rose.
Yeah, and your gender was strange in that film. Really strange gender positioning, and it was like interesting because there was like no vanity, because there were times in that thing where you looked horrible. I know. Horrible. If I had to see myself look like that, it would be devastating, but not you, because it's like for the art, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that stuff. I really do. I'm always like, I actually had in Act 2, we had makeup that like sort of crinkled and made me look like I had like bad skin and all, yeah, I love that stuff. Like I'm always trying to get like darker under eye circles and like, can you, yeah. Because for me, like that's more interesting.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't me either. You know, this has been professionally done.
Oh, Bull, she's beautiful all the time.
Yeah,
Every time I've ever seen you, you're gorgeous.
Yeah, I woke up like this. Yeah.
You did.
Sure. Yeah, I did. But no, it's for me, the rougher I can look, the more fun it is.
Just cool, like just total commitment to your art.
That's
like
fun, and that's, I mean, you know, they looked really rough sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
I like when you were like the sparkly skirts that you had like no control over where they were, and then just like bedtime T-shirts, and your posture was like, it was amazing. I just was like so impressed. Sorry.
Thank you.
A question for both of. Okay. Both, since y'all mentioned it, what is each of your favorite country song?
Holy.
Is that putting you on the spot? I know you like country music. We talked about it.
It's putting me on the spot.
Okay, mine is
You do yours.
Delta Dawn by Tanya Tucker.
Aw, that's nice.
And Tanya Tucker is punk rock like Becky. She's had those moments
Yeah, for sure.
in life and come through them, and experiences a lot of the awkwardness and sobriety in a really soulful way.
Yeah.
She's probably one of my favorite country singers ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a great choice. I can't top that. I can't.
You can't top Delta Dawn? Okay, well, I'll say for you because I know what era you were listening to.
What were we talking
at the time.
about?
So you wanted to be a country singer when you were younger.
When I was like 11, I thought maybe I could be a country singer.
The Judds.
Yes.
Leanne Rimes.
Yes.
And Reba McEntire. Trisha Yearwood.
Trisha Yearwood.
Reba.
Yeah.
Reba,
I was
#1 fan.
I was a huge Judds fan, and Winona Judd, and I mean, I just thought they were incredible. That Love Can Build a Bridge album and all that. I mean, it was just, like
that album
that
is one of the best country albums I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my
Every
God.
song on it.
Incredible.
John Deere Tractor, Love Can Build a Bridge album.
Yeah, just incredible. And so that was something I like listened to. I was I just was all country music when I was like 11 and 12.
And Leanne Rimes when she came out with the yodeling thing.
Yeah, and she was like 15. It was incredible.
And she told me backstage, similar to The Handmaid's Tale, she's like, that could have been me.
Yeah.
That's how she felt when it happened.
And then I'm pretty sure I said, except I can't sing like Leanne Rimes. That's the only problem.
When she came out with that song, that's what I thought. I was like, that could be me.
Yeah.
That should be me, because she was 13.
Yeah.
And guess how old Tanya Tucker was when Delta Dawn was made? 13.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really interesting.
That's incredible.
How is the sensation of telling stories that are not your own?
How is the sensation of telling stories that are not your own?
How do you get inside of them?
Yeah.
That's really the essence of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I try to find how they are my own, honestly. I never try to worry about whether or not it's something that is likable, is something that is unlikable, is something that I don't try to worry about if you're gonna be on the person's side or not. I just try to worry about being honest. Yeah. For me, I don't care if you like the person. Not everybody is likable. People are very flawed. We all are. But for me, if you can understand, if you can just for a moment, even somebody that you don't agree with, if somebody that you can't possibly get on their side, if you can just for a moment understand their situation and where they're coming from. That to me is my job, and, and it's on a role basis, but it's also just on a moment by moment scene basis, just trying to help you understand why a person makes that choice or decision, what they're feeling in that moment. And for me, if someone says, oh, I felt like that, and I know what that feels like, and you did it, that for me is that's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I get that.
Similar with music. I mean,
very similar.
You're trying to represent give a voice to people that don't have it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask, I'll take one more question because I think we're at the end of our time here. There's this little clock counting down. So what is your advice, I think this is to both of us, what is your advice for creatives that want to make their art a formal endeavor, a sustainable lifestyle? It's appropriate for South by Southwest.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think the advice that I give to actors is just to do it. Acting's a weird one because you can't do it on your own. You can't do it by yourself. So my advice is always just don't think about it too much. Don't worry about, oh, this is the way that I have to do it because this is the way that somebody else did it. This is the right way to do something. There's no right way to do anything. There's no right way to get into any industry really sometimes, especially the arts. People have so many different paths that they take.
Yeah.
And so for me, I always just say, just do it. If you love it, go for it. If you feel like you can't not do it, if you feel like you can't live without it, just do it.
Yeah.
But get out there, and I always, kind of give the basic advice of, take classes and join groups and just don't try to follow somebody else.
Yeah.
Because it will never work, and you'll never do it. It'll never be as good, and so just don't worry about that.
Yeah.
What is your experience?
I mean, I'm really geared towards thinking about ways that women can become more visible in music. But I think this advice applies to men too, and it's definitely been my path, which is that if you want to create a life for yourself in the arts, almost like any movement, I think you have to do it with a community. I think you have to get people around you to play with, share your experience with, and to move the needle with all together in one unanimous push.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be a band. It could be a scene. It could be like, the Greenwich Village scene. It could be like Hotel Cafe in LA. It could be like Northern California, a scene, a group of people that supported each other, made a conscious commitment not to compete. And if you are meant to stand out, you will.
Yeah.
But competitiveness, I don't think serves women very well in music right now. And so I really am inspired by broad communities of women that come together to make a push and try to storm the gates of the music industry all at one time. And also, nothing is beneath you.
Right.
No bar, no house party. Play any chance you can get, any chance anyone will give you. If anyone wants to hear your voice, you're winning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's actually good advice. That's cool.
What a good conversation. Thanks for having me,
I
man.
know. Thank you for having me.
We should go continue it. We should go continue out at the bar.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for coming.